Yellow Productions presents
10 things to know before you go to Washington, D.C. I'm Chris, this is Yellow Productions. I do travel guides that are fun, informative, and entertaining, and in this video I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know before you come to the nation's capital of the United States of America. And I'm filming this live on location here on the National Mall. That is the Capitol building right behind me. So the first thing we'll start with is just some general information about Washington, D.C. And that is, if you're referring to D.C., that is the region, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. That's kind of how the area is referred to. If you're referring to the actual city-state that is the District of Columbia, the locals will refer to that as the district. So if you say, I live in the district or I'm going to the district, that is this part right here, the nation's capital. And sometimes the bigger area is referred to the DMV, not the Department of Motor Vehicles, but D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Just one thing to know, if you're coming here and you're trying to plan how much time to spend in D.C., I would say don't spend any less than 3 days. You could easily spend a week in the greater D.C. area. There's certainly lots of museums, things like that to check out, Capitol building tours, but there's lots of stuff in the region, including things like Thomas Jefferson's house, George Washington's house. Those you'll need a car to, but you can easily spend a week in this area. If you're really a history buff, you've never been here before, make sure you have plenty of time. The second thing to know about DC is about the city layout. And so the city layout, it's a grid pattern that has some diagonal streets with some circles. And the lettered streets, they run east-west. The numbered streets, they run north-south. The diagonal streets, those are typically the names of states like Connecticut Avenue. And you should also know that DC is organized into 4 quadrants. And the center of DC, that building right behind me, the Capitol building, and from around it, there's 4 quadrants: northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. So if you have an address in DC, it'll be a number, a street, and then northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast at the end of it. So if you're plotting Google Maps, you're telling a taxi where to go, make sure you have the correct quadrant of the city. Otherwise, you might end up someplace completely different than you were expecting. The third thing to know about DC is getting in or getting here. How do you get to DC? Well, you could certainly drive into DC, though I wouldn't recommend it. DC is notorious for having some of the worst traffic in almost any city in the US, and parking can be quite expensive. If you're flying into DC, there are 3 airports. There's Ronald Reagan, there's Washington Dulles, and there's Baltimore Washington International. The thing about those 3 airports, none of them are actually in the district. Ronald Reagan DCA, it's in Arlington in Virginia. That's the closest. It's just over the river. If you fly in there, it's just a short, like 3-4 stop metro ride, or like a $15 taxi Uber into the city. If you fly into Washington Dulles, that's about 20 miles east in Virginia. If you fly into Baltimore Washington, that's even further up towards Baltimore. My favorite airports happen to be Reagan or Dulles. Just really depends where you can get a direct flight to. Also, you could take the train into DC. There's the Amtrak trains. They come into Union Station, which behind me, there's the Capitol building, and just kind of to the left of the Capitol building, there's Union Station. Lots of great Amtrak trains coming from the north, from New York, points that way, from the south as well. So that's a great way to come in to the city. Okay, the fourth thing to know is about transportation in DC. So you've already got here, and now you need to get around. Well, my advice to you when you're in the district is to walk. Use your feet and walk around, because the traffic's awful. And there is a metro, so the second way to get around is to take the metro or the subway. It's called the metro because, well, it's underground, or a subway in DC, but then when it goes into Maryland, Virginia, in a lot of places it's elevated and it's not a subway anymore. The metro or subway is pretty efficient during work times, on weekdays. On weekends and evening hours, the trains don't come as frequently, so it can be a long way. It's just not really quite as good for a tourist as it is if you are coming here for work. If you are taking the metro, make sure that you get a Smart Trip card. I was looking for it, but I'll put a picture of it right up here. It's kind of the reloadable IC card. You tap it on to ride, you tap it off to exit. They don't do single fare cards anymore. You have to buy one of those. They're $2 to buy the card, and then you load it up with money when you ride the train. They have different fares for peak hours, off-peak hours. You can also buy day passes and things like that. The metro is not super expensive, so I just generally load it up with about 20 bucks when I get here, and that lasts me quite a bit of time in DC. There's also the Capital Bike Share. If you like to bike, there are 175 Capital Bike Share stations around the city. They're these bikes that you can rent by the hour, by the day, pick them up at one, drop them off at another one. That's pretty convenient. Taxis and Uber are plentiful around the city. There's Lyft as well, so you can take those. You will not definitely be without wheeled transportation. And then, of course, did I mention you could drive? You can, but you're gonna pay a lot of money to park. All right, the fifth thing to know about DC is about the museums. The museums in Washington, DC, they are fantastic. This particular area, the National Mall that I'm standing on, it is like the museum capital of the world. The Smithsonian is basically the national franchise museums of the United States. All the Smithsonians are free. The headquarters of the Smithsonian is the castle, and let's see, it's, well, I don't know, you can't see it, but it's back that way. Trust me, there's a castle over there. The Smithsonian Castle, that's the visitor center. You can find out more information about all the Smithsonians. My favorite is the Air and Space Museum, which is located pretty close to the Capitol building on that side of the mall. That's the right side if you're facing the Capitol building. The Air and Space Museum has lots of cool things from NASA, lots of cool planes. Air and Space Museum has 2 locations. It's got one on the National Mall. It's got another one out at Dulles Airport. And so if you want to see the really big things in there, like the Space Shuttle, the Concorde, those are all going to be out at Dulles Airport. And the other thing to know about museums in DC, there's also some other like commercial museums. There's the Newseum, the Spy Museum. Those will cost you more money. I haven't been into them. I've heard the Spy Museum is pretty cool, but if you're going to Smithsonian free and the private ones, they're going to cost you some money. Still talking about museums, I turned the camera around for this part because I was just standing right in front of the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is one of my favorite museums on the National Mall. Museum? What do you mean museum, Chris? Well, it has an observatory at the top of the Washington Monument. Unfortunately, it's closed until like 2019 for repairs. But if you're watching this after 2019, or you're planning a trip here after 2019, make sure you get a ticket to ride the elevator up to the top of the Washington Monument. There's excellent views up there. All right, I'm gonna swing the camera back around again to my previous position, and my second favorite museum in the DC area, it's the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. I particularly mention this one because it's not a Smithsonian, and so not a whole bunch of people know about it, but the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, that is where they print the money in the US, and you can take tours in the morning and in the afternoon. In the winter times, you don't need a reservation, so if you come September 5th to March 2nd, no reservations are needed, just show up and you'll get on a tour. If you come in the summer, the waits can be pretty long. Make sure you get a reservation ahead of time. And the final thing to know about museums is some of the best gift shops in DC are inside the museums. So if you're looking for souvenirs or things like that, check out the Smithsonian gift shops. All right, the sixth thing to know before you come to DC is about government stuff. I bet you're surprised I haven't mentioned these things, but some of the cool things to visit, there's the Capitol building. If you want to visit the Capitol building, book some tickets in advance. They do have limited tickets if you arrive the day of, but you can book tickets to the Capitol building online or through your congressional representative. The White House, if you want to go to the White House, and I'm pointing that way because the White House is that direction from where I'm standing, you will need to reserve a few months before your trip through your congressional representative. There are no same-day walk-up tours for the White House, so that requires some advanced planning. I personally think the Capitol building tour is cooler than the White House tour, so if you can only do one, do the Capitol building. If you come when Congress is in session, you can also go in and sit on some congressional sessions. That's pretty neat, and sometimes they'll have tickets for those available the day of. Often if you come later in the afternoon, you'll have to go, there's some like ticket desks inside the Capitol building. You just show up and say, hey, do you have a ticket? And if they do, they'll hand you one, and then you can go up and sit into a session. All right, the 7th thing to know about coming to Washington, D.C. is about the time to visit. And you know, Washington, D.C. is famous for having some pretty bad weather. It gets a pretty bad rap. In the summer in particular, it can be really hot and humid in D.C. In the winter, it can snow. The best times to visit D.C. is April and October. I'm shooting this in October. You might not think this is the best weather, but actually this kind of weather here, it's breezy. It's about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so not too hot, not too cold. The humidity always makes it feel warmer here. So October is a good shoulder season month. Hotels are fairly inexpensive, but the best time to visit March or April for cherry blossom season. And yes, it can be busy, but the cherry blossoms are truly amazing and a sight to behold. You will be here with everybody else and their mother, so it'll be busy and packed, but the cherry blossoms truly amazing. Definitely don't miss that. But one of my favorite times to come to DC is actually in the winter. That time when it's cold, like December and January, there will be no crowds at all. There's like nobody, because who wants to come to a place that's super cold? But DC actually isn't super cold, and if you're spending your time in all these buildings, the Capitol buildings, the Smithsonian, then you're not actually spending all that much time outside, and so the fact that it's cold doesn't matter all that much. And you can get hotels that, maybe like the Park Hyatt Washington DC, that often go for like $500 a night in January, or like $200 a night. So you can get some pretty good hotels for pretty cheap in the winter. All right, the 8th thing to know about Washington, D.C., it's about hotels. I was just talking about those. So what do you want to know about hotels? Well, the hotels, they can be really expensive in the district, and so can parking. You know, good hotels often run an average of, say, $200 to $300 a night. A lot of the people who come to DC obviously come here for the government. The government publishes this thing called a government rate, and that's often where the rooms start and kind of go up from there in price. If you are looking for some cheaper type accommodations, don't stay in the district, stay in Virginia, either in Arlington, it's the city that right borders DC, or Alexandria, just to the south of Arlington. There can be some more inexpensive hotels there that are pretty close to the metro. You can just hop on the subway, head into DC. You get a cheaper room rate. You don't have to pay as much for parking. It's kind of a win-win altogether. One of my favorites in Crystal City is the Crystal Gateway Marriott, and I've got a video review of that. You can find a link to it in the description below as well. If you're staying in the district and you like the high-end hotels, my favorites are the Park Hyatt Washington, D.C., one of my favorite Park Hyatts, and my second favorite is the Mayflower Hotel, which is Marriott affiliated as a Renaissance. That one really close to DuPont Circle, so that's a pretty neat area to stay. And so if you want to know what the best area in DC to stay for a tourist is, I think DuPont Circle is pretty cool, because there's a lot of restaurants and things like that around there. There are hotels just like to the kind of south of the Smithsonian's and the mall, but sometimes those hotels, they're really designed for government business, so they're close to government office buildings and really far from like anything else, like food or 24-hour drugstores, etc., etc. So try to stay on the north side of the National Mall if you are staying in the district. There's just more liveliness and tourist amenities in that direction. All right, the 9th thing to know about DC, it's about food. I always have this subject in all of my things to know videos, and of course we're going to talk about it for DC. So what do you need to know about food in the district? Well, this place that I'm standing, which is where most tourists go, the National Mall, has like almost zero food. There's maybe like some hot dog trucks and some food trucks that show up. The Air and Space Museum has a McDonald's. Actually, if you are looking for food, I think one of the best things to eat on the National Mall, it's in the National Museum of the Native American. They have a pretty good cafeteria that has a lot of Native American eats, but the other good places to eat, and so that's a little expensive because it's in a Smithsonian. The places that are a little bit cheaper, just to the south of National Mall, there's a place called L'Enfant Plaza. It's a big metro stop. There's a lot of good lunch options there. Another great place for lunch options is Union Station, just to the side of the Capitol building. There's a huge food court in Union Station. If you're looking for dinner type things, the area around Chinatown is pretty good, DuPont Circle as well. But I will say, if you're looking for Chinese food, avoid Chinatown. All the Chinese food in Chinatown, it is not good. I like to consider myself a connoisseur of Chinese food, and when I first came to DC and I didn't know any better, I ate at those Chinese restaurants. They're not good, don't eat there. If you are looking for really good Chinese food though, and you're staying in Virginia, or you have a car so you can head out there, there's a place in Falls Church called the Peking Gourmet Inn. It is George Bush's favorite Chinese restaurant. They specialize in Peking duck. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it is the best Peking duck I have had in the United States of America. It is really that good, and I like to head out there on most trips that I'm out here in Washington, D.C., provided I'm out here with at least somebody else. If I'm by myself, then I seem like a huge glutton eating a Peking duck all to myself. If you're getting there for dinner, 5 or 6, you'll be good at just walking in. After that, make a reservation. They get super busy, and they sell hundreds of Peking ducks a night. I mean, it's truly an amazing place. And on the walls, they've got pictures of George Bush Jr. and George Bush Sr. Because there's both their favorite restaurants. In the district, though, if you want to know what some of my favorites are, number 1 is Potbelly Sandwich. Potbelly Sandwich, it's kind of a fast food sandwich chain, but all the sandwiches are toasted, really delicious. It didn't start in DC, it started in Chicago, I believe, but they have a ton of locations in DC. Their sandwiches are really good. My second favorite is this place called Moby Dick House of Kebab. And Moby Dick House of Kebab, it is a Middle Eastern kebab place that serves, you know, kind of like beef, lamb, chicken that are cooked on skewers, this delicious rice. I don't know how they make the chicken, beef, and lamb so tender and juicy, but they do. It's really good. Their location in DC is right around DuPont Circle. That's another place I hit up almost every time I come. Actually, I think I'm gonna hit that up right after this video. So there'll probably be a picture here of me, not me eating it, but my plate of food at Moby Dick House of Kebab. My third favorite place, this place called Ben's Chili Bowl. It's on U Street. It is a African-American institution in Washington, D.C. There were a bunch of riots here, and it was like one of the few places that wasn't kind of like burned down because it's African American owned, and they have what they call these chili half smokes. They are a cross between like a hot dog and a spicy sausage. They put chili on top. Probably not really good for you, but it is really delicious. And then if you want to know what my favorite sit-down place is in DC, it's Legal Seafoods. It's a Boston chain, but they've been serving their clam chowder to the White House for a lot of their inaugurations and things like that. And their location in the district is right in Chinatown. I should finally mention also another neighborhood great for food is the Georgetown neighborhood. The Metro doesn't really go there really easily, but Georgetown's a cool place to check out. Lots of restaurants there for the evening. All right, the last thing to know, the 10th thing to know about DC is DC, it's more than just the National Mall. There's so many people that I've talked to that when they've come to DC, this place right here that you see is the only place they came to. They came to the mall, they checked out the museums, and they didn't see all the stuff that DC has to offer in that direction. So when you come to DC, because you'll have watched my video, you'll make sure to venture north off the mall to see the real DC, the place where people actually live, where people actually work. It's a pretty cool city, and I already said visit Georgetown, visit the Penn Quarter, visit Adams Morgan if you like bars. That's a great nightlife area. If you don't like bars, then skip Adams Morgan because it can be slightly sketchy from maybe all the alcohol. If you like zoos, Washington, D.C. has the National Zoo. Up on the Red Line, check out the Smithsonian Zoo. It's pretty cool. There's pandas up there. I mentioned U Street. That's a trendy kind of area, up and coming with Ben's Chili Bowl. And some of the things I like to do when I'm in DC is I just like to get the subway map, the metro map, and from wherever wherever I am, just kind of walk along one of the metro lines. One of my favorite lines to walk along is kind of the red line, starting from Chinatown and walking up towards the Smithsonian Zoo. And if you're walking along where the metro is, well, when you get tired, all you have to do, just get on the metro and ride back. All right, well, hey, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. If this was your first time here, I hope you subscribe. Click on this little yellow ball right here to subscribe for new, fun, informative videos every week, or you can click here or here to watch some of my other travel videos. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.